Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how to pick a profitable niche for Facebook. Now, if you think about it, picking the niche is going to be the most important thing when deciding if you're going to see success with your digital asset on Facebook. And it's the thing where most people get stuck. Most beginners overthink what niche to pick. Maybe they pick something that's too complicated, or maybe they pick something that's too difficult to create content for, or maybe they pick a niche which is super competitive. And all it does is it makes it really difficult for you to see success. Today, we're going to be talking about the strategies that you can apply to pick a niche, which will be simple to create for, aligned to the algorithm, and create you a long-term asset, which will keep driving you profit for a long time to come. If you've ever been stuck staring at a blank screen thinking about what niche should I pick, what content should I create, you're probably stuck in the choice paralysis trap. For most people, it comes down to one of three things. Maybe you pick something that's too broad and you keep losing the signal within the algorithm. Everything that sits behind Facebook and what content is shown to people is powered by an algorithm. Exactly how that algorithm works is a bit of a mystery, but we are certain of a few things. One of those things is that for a Facebook page, Facebook builds up an understanding of the type of audience that are going to enjoy your content. In order for Facebook to confidently build up that audience and know who to push your content to, you need a niche. Now, it's probably worth clarifying what we actually mean by a niche in this context. You can think of a niche as a combination of three things. Firstly, the audience. So who is it for? Is it for mums? Is it for dads? Is it for football fans? Is it for small business owners? Then the topic that you talk about. So are you talking about fitness? Are you talking about health? Are you talking about money? Are you talking about dogs? And then the angle or the style that you use. Is it funny content? Is it emotional? Is it controversial? So in order for the algorithm to be able to push your content to people, we need to make sure that we're able to answer those three things really clearly and that those three things remain true for all the content that we're posting. Now, of course, you can have a little bit of variation in there, but if every day you're posting different types of content or you're changing those things, then the types of people that are going to enjoy your content are different every time. And the Facebook algorithm is going to get confused about who to push that content to. And if you're confusing the algorithm's not sure who to post it to. Ultimately, your content isn't going to get engagement and you'll really struggle to gain the momentum that you need to drive profit from your digital asset. The second reason that you might be falling into this trap is because you've picked a niche which is too competitive. There are some really obvious niches which come to mind when you think about the kind of content that might go viral or the kind of content that people might enjoy on Facebook. An example I like to use is dogs. Now, it's worth being very clear that you absolutely can see success in the dog niche, provided that you take a unique angle with your niche and your content, and the quality of your content is very high. But the concept of how competitive a space is applies very much to when we're picking a niche and when producing content on Facebook. For certain niches, like the dog niche, there is so much content out there that if the content that you're producing is garbage or it's not particularly unique, it's going to be really difficult to go viral in that niche. For niches which have high competition, you'll see that a lot of your competitors have almost grabbed the real estate for those audiences. If I really like looking at pictures of cute dogs, I probably already follow and interact with a number of different Facebook pages who produce that kind of content. And it's going to be really difficult for you to break onto that scene unless your content is really good. I just want to re-emphasize at this point, generally speaking, our philosophy is that if you see someone doing something well, then there's absolutely no reason why you can't also see that success and grab a piece of that pie, so to speak. But when it comes to starting out and producing your first Facebook pages particularly, you might be making it harder for yourself than you need to because the threshold for quality for which your content needs to meet is a lot higher. So it's just an important consideration when deciding what niche to go for. And then the third thing is complexity. Consistency is almost more important than quality when it comes to seeing success on Facebook. And that's about making sure that we're posting good content regularly. And the really important dependency that we've got there is that we're able to produce lots of good content. So if your niche requires hours of research for each piece of content, or you've picked a niche for which there's some kind of time constraint on your content, you're going to really struggle to hit the consistency you need. So for example, creating a Facebook page about the Super Bowl might be a bad idea since it only happens once a year. And for a large proportion of the year, you might struggle to come up with good, engaging content. So we need to make sure that we're picking a niche that doesn't fall into any of these categories. And in our case, we want to move towards a niche which is set up for a faceless and automated business model. The niche we choose isn't just a label, it isn't just something that we talk and think about. It is literally the most important factor for our return on investment. Our choice of niche is going to determine how much money we make from our digital assets. Now, when we think about return on investment for our niche, For me, there are three pillars which are really important. Firstly, ease of creation. And this is almost a proxy for the amount of investment of our time that we need to put in. So many creators fail because they pick a niche which requires a lot of effort, there's high friction to creating the content, and they lose that consistency of posting. A successful niche looks like one where we can create content easily so that we don't face that burnout, which a lot of creators fall into. The second is, how clear is our niche? How easy is it going to be for Facebook's algorithm to work out who is going to engage and interact with our content? For me, this is a proxy of how performant our content is going to be. So how much is that investment of our time going to grow with respect to engagement? So this comes back to those three things we mentioned before about, is your audience really well defined? Is your topic, what you actually talk about, well defined? And is the angle and style that you use to talk about that stuff also well defined? And can you stick to it? If we do that, then Facebook's algorithm is going to be able to build up a very clear understanding of the audience of our content and consistently push that content to them. And so long as we're staying consistent, the engagement that you see will snowball and snowball and snowball. Now, the third thing is monetization. So we talked about ease of creation, which is the investment of our time. We've talked about how easily is Facebook going to be able to find our audience and therefore grow our engagement. Now, this third bucket of monetization is the bit that basically takes your growth and your engagement and your audience and then converts it into a pound figure. Now, this is actually quite a complicated topic, which we talk a lot about in our school community, and we'll talk about more in other content. The two really important things to take away are that the new Facebook monetization scheme values attention of its users, which means that it values different types of engagement over others. And the second is that not all audiences are created equal. So for example, if you were generating a certain amount of engagement in the dog niche, this would be less valuable than if you were creating a similar amount of engagement in the finance niche. We won't dive into the specifics of that now. If you're interested in finding out more about the third, then please consider joining our school community where we talk about it a lot more. So that's been a little bit theoretical so far. What I want to do to help make this foolproof is talk about 4 boxes that I want you to be able to tick in order to make sure that your niche is going to be successful. Rule number 1 is evergreen content. If you're building a digital asset on Facebook, you don't want it to have an expiry date. You don't want to invest time and effort building up an asset, building up an audience, building up a content generation engine, only for it to expire in a year's time and for you to stop making money from it. We want it to be evergreen. We want the niche that we pick and the content that we produce to always be relevant. There are certain topics today which people cared about 10 years ago that people are also going to care about in 10 years from now. So maybe a bad example would be picking your favorite TV show. So maybe my favorite TV show is Breaking Bad. Well, Breaking Bad is kind of in the past. It's a great TV show and people will still enjoy it. But if I created a Facebook page on it, people aren't going to really care about it today. And I'm going to really struggle to drive engagement. And in 10 years from now, people are definitely not going to care about it. Examples of good niches, ones that people are always going to care about, are mindset and motivation. That's been around for centuries and it's always going to be important how people are thinking inside their head and how they motivate themselves to do things. Relationships. Humans are literally biologically wired to have relationships. Connection is important for survival, well-being, and identity. And for a lot of us, our relationships are possibly the most important things that we have. That is a great example of an evergreen niche. Fitness and wellness. We are human at the end of the day, and having our health is so important for us being able to lead happy lives. Now, for the whole of history and for at least the foreseeable future, fitness and having our health has been and will be an important part of our lives. Home hacks and parenting. Again, people live in houses. A lot of people are parents. That is a niche for which you can produce tons of content, which people are always going to be interested in. Pet care and animals is another great example. A lot of people have pets and a lot of people love animals. There's tons of different content and tons of different angles that you can take and see success in that niche. And again, it's not something that's going anywhere. So another great example of an evergreen niche. These are just some examples. There are loads and loads more. But a good test to make sure that the niche you're picking is evergreen is, will people care about this in 10 years' time? And did people care about this 10 years ago? The answers to those questions should help you to understand whether or not this is a good idea. And again, a bit of a disclaimer, that's not to say that you can't pick something which is not evergreen and not see really great success. There are definitely crazes and trends which pop up on social media, which you can absolutely ride out. It's just a nod to the fact that if we're creating a digital asset and we want it to have longevity, then this is something that we need to really consider. Now, the second rule is emotional velocity. Without diving too deep into the new monetization scheme, The high level summary is that Facebook wants users' attention. They want their users to stay on the platform so that they can show them more ads, which makes them more money. And the thing which is going to keep bringing users back is good quality content. Now, out of all the engagement types, so there's views, there's likes, there's comments, and there's shares. Shares is by far and large the most valuable. Every time someone shares your content, it unlocks a new group of people, a new audience to show it to. The thing that's going to trigger that is some kind of emotional response. And the more it's shared, the more that you kind of gain this momentum and the emotional velocity takes off. So this idea of fueling the share button is very strongly linked to triggering an emotional response. The reason that the dog niche is so saturated and such an obvious choice is that people often see a picture of a cute dog and they immediately go, oh, that's such a cute dog. I'm going to send it to my family. I'm going to share it with my friends. That's exactly the kind of response we want to trigger. But this works for all types of emotions, whether they're positive or negative. So as long as your content makes people feel something, then you should start to see this emotional velocity and get the engagement that you want to see in order to really maximize your earnings with the new Facebook monetization scheme. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone who sees your content needs to have an emotional response, because ultimately you're picking a niche, you're creating content for a specific group of people. So for example, you might be creating content for the equestrian niche, and for people that don't care about horses, they're not going to have any kind of emotional response. But if people in the equestrian space would see your content and have an emotional response, then that's perfect. If, however, your content is generic or there's no specific group of people which are gonna react in any kind of way to your content, then that is not a good niche to go for, because you're probably going to see very little engagement and it's going to be really difficult for you to get that momentum and velocity that we're talking about. So rule numbers 3 and 4 are all about the amount of effort that it's going to take to create the content. As I say, so many creators fail because they burn out. Now, a lot of you might be doing this as a side hustle or in your spare time. Some of you might be doing it full time, but the most important thing is that you're going to be able to consistently create good content. Now, that comes down to two things. Firstly, have you got lots of ideas about what the content could be? Can you imagine all the different types of content that you could produce for your Facebook page? If the answer is no, then it's a bad niche. And then secondly, how easy is it to create that content? If your content involves you climbing up all the tallest mountains in the world, then that is a very bad idea, because that's not easy content to produce. So can you think of lots of different ideas? And is it going to be relatively low friction for you to actually make that idea turn into reality? And I like that quote on the bottom of the slide here. If it's a struggle to make, it's a struggle to scale. So if when you're first starting, it's taking you a long time to produce the content, cut your losses. It's really, really difficult to continue to commit lots and lots of time to producing content that's difficult to make. And I promise you, you will burn out. So you need to make sure that the content you're producing is simple to make. And ideally, you can do it in an automated way, or at least a semi-automated way. Right, before we pick our winner, we need to talk about what to avoid. So these are your policy red zones, the things which Facebook and Meta do not like and will not allow. Now, it's really important that you take these seriously, because you might for some time get away with it before Facebook detects that you're posting content that they don't like. So before you invest your time, your money, and your energy in building an asset which is ultimately going to be blocked, we need to make sure that we're steering clear of them. And it very much does happen. Creators monetize their assets and then Facebook will pull the rug on the whole thing because we're violating one of their policies. So I do strongly recommend that you steer well clear of these things. Now, none of these are a surprise. Ultimately, Facebook is a social media platform with over 3 billion users. They have a responsibility to make sure that the content that's being pushed is all fine and acceptable. So these are the ones to avoid. Firstly, political and controversial news. Basically, just avoid anything which strays into the realm of politics. Secondly, medical and health claims. Unless you're a qualified professional, you aren't in a position to be pushing out medical advice, so it's just easier to avoid this altogether. Thirdly, get rich quick schemes. I'm sure you've come across them in your time. There are so many scams on Facebook, so even if yours is legit, Facebook might flag it just to be safe, so it's just safer to avoid this. Worth clarifying that we don't mean the financial niche as a whole here, just content that proclaims that this is the way to make money or this is the way to get rich quick. Facebook absolutely does not like that kind of thing. And then the fourth thing, not so much a policy thing, but just a reiteration of avoiding content which has a short expiry date. It's high maintenance and it's really difficult to build a long-term asset in this space, which is going to generate you a reliable income. So for all these examples, I would just give them a wide berth to stay on the safe side. It's the worst thing in the world to have spent so much time and energy building up this asset just for it to get removed later down the line. It's just not worth it. All right, so this is something that I want you to do really early on when you're thinking about what niche you want to go for. It's called the 20 post stress test. So I want you to get a timer and set it for 5 minutes. Get a piece of pen and paper if you're old fashioned or onto your computer. And I want you to come up with 20 different post ideas. I don't mind if it's actually the content that you would end up posting or a prompt that would help you to get to that content. But if at the end of the 5 minutes you've got easily 20 ideas, then your niche has passed the test. But if you're sat there and you're struggling to come up with at least 5 different ideas, then it's worth putting this niche in the bin. We don't want it to have to feel like a big effort to come up with content. So it's worth identifying early whether or not this is going to be a really difficult niche to pursue. And this test is an easy way of doing that. So I just wanted to flash up a couple of niches which are very much ticking the boxes that we chatted through. They all avoid the red zone policies. And if you spend some time researching these kinds of niches, you'll see tons and tons of pages doing really, really well. So the 3 that we've got here are daily mindset shifts, relationship reminders, and then home organization tips. All 3 of them are clearly very evergreen content. I talked about them earlier. They're things that people cared about 10 years ago. They're things that people are going to care about in 10 years from now. None of these things are going away. For daily mindset shifts, the kind of content that we can produce could really trigger that kind of hopeful feeling and make our users feel empowered. And that's the kind of thing that's going to get them to engage with it. For relationship reminders, we can trigger that feeling that people have for their loved ones. And it's the kind of thing that they would want to share with their loved ones too. And for home organization tips, there's so many people that love that feeling of being in control and having a neat and tidy home, or they feel like they're leveraging new tech to make their home as efficient as it can be. And for daily mindset shifts and relationship reminders, there's tons and tons of content that comes to my mind immediately just by using text and simple imagery, which with the technology that we have available to us today, we can produce in an automated and very low friction, low cost way. Even for home organization tips, I can think of lots of simple text-based content and some more sophisticated types of content too, which would maybe take a bit more effort. But the important thing is that in 5 minutes, I could write down tens and tens of ideas of content that I want to produce, and I have confidence that I could produce it in a relatively low effort way. So the questions for you when you're picking your niche are, is it evergreen? Is it going to be around for a long time? Does it trigger emotion and make people feel a certain kind of way? Can you think of loads of different content that you can produce for that page? And then is it simple and low friction to produce? If the answer to all those questions is yes, then I can confidently say that you're on to a winner, so long as you're avoiding those red zones and policy violations. Now, this has very much been a high level whip through of what makes a good niche in 2026. If you want more detailed feedback or a more comprehensive understanding of how to leverage this opportunity that sits in front of us, then I encourage you to head over to our school community. Right now, we've got the 30-day challenge, which will take you through all of the steps that you need to take in order to get your first Facebook page up and running. And then we've got tons more content in the community on how to become a real expert creator and how to create an automated empire on Facebook and all the different ways you can leverage your digital assets to make further income. So if you're interested, head over to school.com/AI lab and look forward to meeting you in the community. But for now, thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.